With the new release, which one should you buy? The Hoka Cielo X1 or the Cielo X1 2.0? Today, we break it down. What's up, everybody? I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Now, today we're going to be comparing the Cielo X1 and the Cielo X1 2.0, but we're just doing a specs breakdown as I don't have enough runs in the Cielo X1 2.0 yet to be able to give kind of full context of how it feels overall. And if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below, so feel free to jump around to various parts of the review. But if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you like my videos and you haven't hit that subscribe button and turned on notifications, please do so now to get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But lately I've been doing daily videos to kick off 2025. Now, before we kick off this comparison, some quick disclaimers and disclosures, which are that I received the Cielo X1 2.0 for free for the purpose of review directly from Hoka. As far as the Cielo X1, I actually paid for this one with my own money. Now, regarding my videos though, no one pays me for these videos, no one gets to watch these videos beforehand, no one gives me a talk track, anything like that. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the comparison of these shoes. Speaking of intended use, this is Hoka's premier racing option. It is their super shoe, and it is designed to go fast over 26.2 miles. As such, that's how we're going to be talking about the shoe today. From a price perspective, both of these came in at $275 upon original release. Obviously, with the release of the Cielo X1 2.0, the one is going to be a little bit cheaper and probably go on sale at most retail outlets. Now, from a specs perspective, the X1 came in at 9.3 ounces and 264 grams in a men's size 10, which is Hoka's typical sample size. Most brands, just to be clear, use a men's 9, so those are going to sound a little bit heavier than other brand counterparts. This is one of the biggest changes that Hoka made to the 2.0 though, because the 2.0 comes in at 8.1 ounces and 229 grams in a men's size 10. So in a normal men's size 9 sample, that's going to come in somewhere in the 7 point something range, which is significant improvement because, at least in my experience, one of the biggest, if not the biggest knock on the X1 was the overall weight of the shoe. From a stack height perspective, Hoka has these labeled at the same levels, so 39 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot, and a 7mm heel to toe drop. But based off of Running Warehouse's evaluation last year, this actually had 46 in the heel. Now, it's too early because the shoe just released today as I'm filming this video to get kind of independent measurements, but we'll probably see, and in my final review, I'll tell you what kind of those independent measurements have come out at, but my assumption would be that it is higher than 39 in the heel as well this year. From a fit perspective, I feel like these shoes fit fairly similar overall, actually. Both are true to size lengthwise, and then both are somewhat snug in the midfoot. I think the main difference is going to be in that heel. So the Cielo X1, the heel was a little bit wider fitting overall, and some people had some issues kind of with the lockdown of the heel. I in particular didn't, and felt like the heel was just fine, but I do feel like the heel in the 2.0 is going to be a little bit more snug. But then from a toe box perspective, both of them have a similar volume overall toe box. I would call it probably standard fit, not wide. So on either of these, I would not size up or down. I would go with your true size. Now, moving to the uppers, this was another one of the major changes in the shoe. One of the biggest knocks in the X1 was not that the upper was necessarily bad, at least I didn't think it was, but the upper had an engineered knit, and it wasn't really like a race-oriented upper. It was a little bit warm at times. Some people did find it a little bit uncomfortable, and people absolutely hated the laces. I thought they were kind of a weird choice overall as well, personally. I thought the upper was fine, but again, it was just a little bit warm, a little bit heavy for what you would expect from a racing shoe, especially across 26.2 miles. Now in the X1 2.0, they've completely changed this. So you have an engineered jacquard mesh. You have a more significantly structured, kind of more of a classic heel there, and you have that flare for kind of Achilles comfort. You've got a little bit of extra cushion there as well, but then the rest of the shoe is going to be, again, that engineered jacquard, which is going to be very, very breathable, a lot more streamlined, and a lot closer to what we had in the Hoka Carbon X2. In fact, if you look at the uppers or the shoe as a whole, I feel like this almost looks like a Carbon X3, or sits somewhere between the Cielo X1 and the Carbon X2, which is kind of a nice sweet spot for a lot of people. The other thing, as you can see, is they drastically changed the laces. These are a lot more robust. They feel like a lot more premium of laces as well. And so they really took the feedback from the X1 and applied it to the 2.0. and it seems to be working pretty well for this shoe, at least one run in for me. At the very least, you're saving a ton of weight and a ton of heat in this new upper. Overall, I think it's a win. The one thing I will say is that the tongue is not fully gusseted, and I cannot figure out for the life of me why brands continue to do this and have non-gusseted tongues. I think every single running shoe should have a gusseted tongue. I don't feel like it should be even a debate. But despite that, at least on my initial run in the shoe, I felt like the lockdown was pretty good. Now moving to the midsoles, both of these are full PIBA midsoles with a winged carbon fiber plate running through the middle. And so as far as the compound, as far as I was told at the running event, the compound is going to be the same overall compound. The difference is primarily going to come in the geometry of these shoes. One big call out is that the cutout in the shoe has gone from the lateral side to the medial side. So at least in one run, what I noticed was that the Cielo X1 2.0 was not going to be a necessarily stable option for overpronators, because all of a sudden now you have that cutout there, and so it's going to add a little bit of instability. Meanwhile, in the one, that cutout was on the lateral side, so unless you were a supinator, it shouldn't have really affected you. And I found that the X1 was one of the more, if not the most stable super shoe out there, and was really, really accommodating for a variety of foot strikes. So that's something that you really are going to want to consider if you are looking at the Cielo X1 2.0 for kind of an upgrade this year for your race shoe. If you were someone who bought the X1 for those stability needs, those are probably going to be gone in the 2.0, and so may or may not work for you. Just be aware of that. Now, the other thing is the X1, while it did have a good rocker, the 2.0's rocker seems to be a lot more aggressive and almost reminds me of the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Flash, where you have a pretty aggressive rocker and you feel it when you're running and you feel it as soon as you put on the shoe. So, so overall, although I feel like the midsole compound itself may be the same, the aggressiveness and geometry and setup of the midsole in the 2.0 feels a lot more aggressive, and that paired with the overall lighter weight makes this a lot more capable racing shoe in my mind compared to last year's model, where I do feel like the upper and the weight, not necessarily the geometry, but those two things kind of held it back a little bit from being a true race option for a lot of people. Now moving to the outsole, you have a durable rubber, almost full coverage on the two, pretty much full coverage on the one. And this was something that I really, really liked from Hoka racing shoes, is that they put an actual outsole and a good traction pattern on there. Now, I haven't been able to take this shoe outside just yet and be able to feel how it will do on like slick roads or wet roads, but the Cielo X1 was phenomenal on those roads and phenomenal on wet terrain. And so I really, really enjoyed that and was really happy with the traction overall, even though it did add a little bit of weight. Now, I don't know if the rubber compound has changed and become more lightweight, which sometimes may take away from some of the grip. So we'll have to see what that looks like. But I, at the very least, do enjoy the fact that there is a real outsole on the 2.0 as well. Now, as far as my pick, I don't really have one just yet because it's too early to tell. But I hope that quick specs breakdown and just like high level feel was helpful to you guys to kind of decide which one you might want to go with, or if it's worth getting an upgrade to the 2.0 this year for your potential races. Now, normally I would have waited to make this video until I had a couple of runs in this shoe just so I could give it a fair comparison, but given the hype that the Cielo X1 had and how many people bought the shoe and really wanted to get some miles in the shoe, I figured that the similar hype would be around the 2.0 and wanted to make sure I at least got in front of some of the major changes, because all in all, like, my early assessment is this is a completely different shoe. It's what I was really hoping for in the X1. For me, the X1 ended up being a little bit more of almost like a super trainer, and frankly, a really, really good one. Like, I loved this shoe. I just didn't love to race in this shoe. It was just a little bit too heavy. So with the lighter weight, with the more streamlined fit, with the kind of more aggressive geometry in the 2.0, I may end up racing a couple of races in this shoe because it just seems a lot more nimble, a lot more agile, and able to handle the rigors of a faster race without weighing you down over time. So honestly, these two shoes, if you can swing the budgets, I think that they probably are going to work really, really well together. This kind of as your long run training shoe, and this as your actual like race day shoe and maybe your speed workout shoe. But the two shoes share a name and a very similar name because they didn't go with the X2, they went with the X1 2.0. But I just think that this is a big enough shift year to year that it warranted getting this video out early, or as early as I could, to give people kind of a heads up of what to expect from changes from Hoka, specifically the Cielo X1 this year. Now, if you stuck around this far, I sure appreciate you. Please leave a comment, let me know what comparisons you'd like to see and what you enjoyed most about this video, or if there's anything that I could be doing to improve the quality of these videos, please let me know, as I'm always open and trying to improve the quality of my content that I provide to each and every one of you. Now with that, we'll wrap things up, as always, with a question, which is, based on what you heard today, do you think that the 2.0 is worth the upgrade, or are you going to be stocking up on the X1? Let me know down below. Thanks, everybody.